This tutorial shows you how to take rasters of different extents and resolutions and make them exactly the same as one another. The purpose is to get these rasters in preparation for performing ecological niche modeling using the software Maxent, which requires all rasters with the environmental data to have exactly the same extents and resolutions as one another. This tutorial assumes you have RStudio installed. See the show notes below for another video that I made to install RStudio. This tutorial also assumes you have the R package Raster installed. See the show notes below for another video I made on how to install enmeval, which would install the Raster package as a part of installing that enmeval package. So that's the video that you would want to reference to install the Raster package. This tutorial assumes you are using Ubuntu Linux version 20.04 as your operating system. If you do not have Linux, you can emulate it on your Windows or Mac computer for free. See the show notes for details. In fact, I am emulating Linux right now on my Mac computer using VirtualBox. I have a VirtualBox virtual machine pre-configured with the software I will show you today, as well as other population genetics and ecological niche modeling and GIS software. See the show notes below for step-by-step instructions to download and hook up this virtual machine within your Windows or Mac computer. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing is to open up a browser window, which I have pinned to my favorites here on the left, or which you can find by searching below. Navigate to my website, joshbanta.com. Click on Tutorials. Type Control F to bring open a search window. Then, in the search window, type How to Adjust. And that will pull up the laboratory data that we need in the table of contents on my website. Click on that link, and it takes you to the right module. From there, click on the link that says Files Needed for Tutorial. Now click the Download button. When the file is done downloading, you may close the browser window. Next, open up File Explorer, which I have pinned to the left in my favorites, or which you can find by searching below, and navigate to your Downloads folder. The file we just downloaded is rasteradjustfiles.zip. Double-click on it. This opens up an Archive Manager program that can peer inside of the compressed zip archive. However, we cannot access the files within this compressed zip archive until we copy them out of the zip archive and into somewhere else. Be sure that you still have File Explorer open and click on it. Navigate to the desktop. Now come back to your Archive Manager software and find the folder that says Raster Adjust Files. Take this folder and drag it from the zip archive onto your desktop. The folder and all of its files have now been extracted from the zip archive onto your desktop and are ready to use. You may close the Zip Archive Manager program. This is a quick splice to ask you to consider subscribing to my channel by hitting the subscribe button. It does not cost anything. It is totally free. But if you like what I am doing and want to support my work, I encourage you to visit patreon.com/joshbanta and make a voluntary contribution. The link is in the show notes below. Your support helps me to deliver new content and keep this channel current and vibrant. Thank you. Let's take a look at these raster files. Double-click on the Raster Adjust Files folder. The raster files are in the form of the ASCII grid format. So let's open up this first one here, afldtx.asc. Right-click if you are on a Windows mouse, or push down on the trackpad with 2 fingers if you are on a Mac laptop, and make sure that it will open with text editor. Select Open with Text Editor. So here we have the information about this raster. Come back to your File Explorer and now open bdtx.asc, again by right-clicking with a Windows mouse or by pushing down on the trackpad with 2 fingers on a Mac laptop to bring up Open with Text Editor and select it. Notice now that in Text Editor we have 2 tabs open. One is for afldtexas.asc and the other one is for bdtexas.asc. Notice that the XLL corner, the corner position, is at the coordinate 873000 in bdtexas.asc. And the cell size is 1000. Notice in afldtx.asc, the lower left X corner is at 873.018.90400849. So it's at a different place. So it's not exactly the same spatial extent. The spatial extent has to be in exactly the same place and the same size, and it's clearly not. And the cell size is not 1000. The cell size here is 942.449. So the resolution is clearly not the same between these 2 rasters either. When we intend to use these rasters to perform ecological niche modeling using the software Maxent, the niche modeling will not work because these rasters are not the exact same spatial extent and exact same resolution. We need to make all of these rasters have the exact same spatial extent and the exact same resolution. Go ahead and close the text editor program. Next, open up RStudio, which I have pinned to my favorites on the left, or which you can find by searching below. We're going to open up an R script that you downloaded. Click on File, and from the drop-down menu, choose Open File. Navigate to your desktop, double-click on the Raster Adjust Files folder, and select the file that says ASCII Adjust Files 4119.r. When you have it highlighted, click the Open button. Next, we need to set our working directory. To do this, click on Session, and from the drop-down menu, choose Set Working Directory, and from the next drop-down menu, choose Choose Directory. Navigate to your desktop, and then double-click, rather, do not double-click. Simply highlight the folder that says Raster Adjust Files. If you accidentally double-clicked, come back over here again to the desktop and regular single click on Raster Adjust Files so that it is merely highlighted. Then click the Open button. We have now set our working directory to the Raster Adjust Files location on our desktop. This is where RStudio will go to find all of the files that it will be using, and where it will write all of the new files that we create. call the raster library by highlighting it and clicking the button that says Run. Next, we're going to import each of those raster files in the ASCII raster format that we have in our directory. In the script right now, it only has 3 rasters being imported: afldtexas.asc, bdtexas.asc, and bio1.asc. But if you come back over into File Explorer and look, there are several more ASCII grid raster files within that folder. So what you need to do is to follow this pattern that you see here and add code to import each of those other raster files as well. So I'll do one to show you. So I'm going to come back here. bio2.asc is another raster we need to import. So I'm going to tell RStudio, make an R object called bio2 and import it using the raster command. And we're going to be importing with the raster command a file called bio2.asc. Notice quotation marks on either side of the file name, and notice parentheses on either side of the quotation marks. There is no space in between the word raster and the parentheses. Keep adding each of these until you have the script set up to import each ASCII raster file from the file folder on our desktop. When you're finished, make sure to save your work by hitting the Save Current Document button. When you finish that, you should have many more rasters here than what you see on my screen. What you will do then is highlight all of the lines of code for importing your rasters. You will have many more lines of code to highlight here than what I have highlighted. With all of those lines highlighted, click the Run button. Next, we need to set all of those rasters to be the same size. What you need to do down here is make a new line of code for each of the rasters that you have in your data set. So the first one we will call AFLD-Texas B. Notice that the original raster was called AFLD-Texas. We're making a new one called AFLD-Texas B. And what we will do is we will resample AFLD-Texas to the spatial extent and resolution of the raster bio1. So I've decided to make all of our rasters have the spatial extent and resolution of this one raster bio1. But you could have picked any of the other rasters as the standard to which all of the other rasters would be recreated. For the purposes of this tutorial, we will make that standard bio1. What you should do here is line by line, you should add another line for the raster that you're going to be resampling into a new raster that has the same spatial extent and resolution as bio1. So the next one in this list would be bio1. But of course, we don't need to resample bio1 to itself. So we will skip that and we will write bio2 B, because I am going to be resampling this raster bio2. Bio2B, resample, open parentheses, bio2, comma, bio1. Notice the open and close parentheses. There is no space in between the word resample and the parentheses. So you will go through and do this for every other raster in your data set following this pattern. Once this is finished, you will highlight all of those lines of code, and you will have many more lines of code than what you see here on my screen. And you will click Run. This will take a few moments. When it's completed, you will come down here and you will write a line of code for each one of your rasters. This is because we are now going to take the new rasters that we have created within R, and we're going to write those rasters to files in the ASCII grid format. So for each of those rasters that you created, you're going to have a line that says write raster, the name of the new raster that you created that ends with B, the name of the file that you are creating, and keep the rest of the text the same. So for instance, I will add a line of code to give you the idea. And capitalization matters. Your capitalization should follow exactly the pattern as you see in the rest of the script. Write raster, open parentheses, bdtx b, comma, space, bdtx2, or we could have called it bdtxb. .asc, and then comma, overwrite equals true. Notice that the comma is after the quotation mark here. Notice that we have quotation marks around the name of the file that we are creating. There is no space in between the word write raster and the parentheses. So you will make a line of code like that for each of your new rasters that you've created that has the suffix B. And you will give it a new file name that has the same name as the original raster, but with a 2, or if you'd like, with a B, .asc. Once you've done that, you will highlight all of your lines of code, and your lines of code will be much longer than mine is here. And you will push the button that says Run. I'm just going to highlight 2 lines of code, but you should highlight all of your lines of code down below here that have this write raster command, and you will have many of them. Click the Run button. When RStudio is finished running, save your R script so that you don't lose your work, and then come to File, Quit Session. When it asks you to save your workspace image, you can click Don't Save, because you've already saved your R script, which is what we're concerned about. As long as this disk icon is grayed out, it is safe to close RStudio because you have saved your R script. So when you get this message, you can click on Don't Save. Next, we will look at two of our new rasters. One of our new rasters is called bdtexas2.asc. So we will right-click if you're on a Windows-style mouse, or push down on the trackpad with two fingers on a Mac laptop and select Open with Text Editor. Next, we will come to afldtexas2.asc, and we will do the same thing. We'll open it with Text Editor. Now there are two tabs within Text Editor, and we can compare them. afldtexas2.asc now has a lower left corner on the x-axis of 873.018.904, etc., and a resolution of 942.788. If we come to bdtexas2.asc, we find that it is exactly the same. The lower left corner on the x-axis is 873.018.904, etc. The cell size is also exactly the same, 942.788. So that's just an example using two of our newly created rasters, but the same would be true for any of the other rasters. You only need to show me a comparison of two of your newly created rasters, not all of them. After you have shown me that you have successfully created your rasters to be the exact same spatial extent and resolution by showing me two of your new rasters, you are finished with this laboratory exercise.